Hey traders, checking in on the stock market today. So after short-lived euphoria from the FOMC reaction yesterday, it was wiped out with the bears back in control today. And we have our key levels that we're looking at still in play. Let's check in on them. So the chart that we have been looking at, the NASDAQ key resistance zone, and we rejected yet again. So in the video yesterday, a couple major takeaways. The first is we know the final 2 hours of the FOMC reaction that day, that's not enough. We have to see follow through because we have plenty of times in the past gone one direction on FOMC day and then the complete opposite direction in the following days after it. We've got quad witching on Friday. We're going to anticipate some continued volatility until then, and just a lot of back and forth. Big bull move up, big bear move down. Generally, I'm scouting equilibriums when that happens, but this chart, again, if yesterday I talked about how the spectrum of who needs to prove it, and it was the SPY bears that need to prove it and the QQQ bears that need to prove it. At this point, we can say that the QQQ bulls, the NASDAQ bulls, have to get over this resistance line to prove that they have control to us. And every time we reject from it, the bears gain confidence as far as keeping short-term, essentially just keeping a lid on things. So with that rejection, another thing that I said yesterday was, if I'm a bear, I want to run straight up to that resistance level, get as extended as possible to be looking for that rejection. And yes, we did break resistance on the futures time frame, but if you look at the QQQ chart, which we will, we didn't break the resistance level, and it was a bull break with zero follow through straight into a big pullback. From there, once I saw that rejection, this uptrend line then stood out to me, and I made a bullish trade off of this uptrend support into the end of the day. We'll talk about that in just a moment, but nice to recognize a nice clear level that now has 5 touches. So what do we got? 9 touches now of resistance, a lot of touches, and 5 touches of support. This is the chart until it breaks. This is the chart that I'm watching. Bulls, if we get some green tomorrow, we will remain within this pattern into next week, but we need that green tomorrow. Bulls need some help. If we get a bear break, and again, here's QQQ, rejecting lower high on the daily, gap up open, anything under 420 cents, just a lower high. It is now set. So again, lower high, double top, lower high, triple top, lower high. And the key support in the short term is that recent low of 383.63. If that breaks, daily downtrend continues, and our fear low is back on deck. Key futures chart, S&P 500. Drew this morning, not before the rejection took place, but right as the rejection took place, just noticing an uptrending resistance line. And we did see a new all-time high in some names. SPY didn't get that all-time high, missed by less than $1. But essentially, we've got a double top at the all-time high right now in here on the S&P 500. Again, it's not as weak as QQQ because we have other sectors that are holding strong. And they look just fine, and we'll look at those in just a second. But it is QQQ that is still weak, unable to get over that resistance. Short-term weakness. Weekly chart, still strong. But 4-hour time frame, certainly bulls failing. So I'm going to be watching those tightening charts on the 4-hour time frame on the futures charts. SPY daily. And again, I have to keep in mind that Friday we get dividend adjustments in SPY, so I'm going to be using SPY less. I'll be using the futures charts more. But here's our double top at the all-time high. Bears would have to break 460 to lose short-term momentum, or for bears to regain short-term momentum. Semiconductors, just a big old 4-hour equilibrium with all this volatility. We have our low, high of the bounce, higher low, lower high, and bulls held support. We have to see green tomorrow if we're going to remain within this equilibrium. But we need green. That's important for tomorrow. If we see a bear break of daily support, 293.63, the daily downtrend continues, and the fear low is on deck. Such a complete 180 turnaround. Emotions swirling the last 24 hours in these markets. And again, the one clue as well, we're not seeing strength in our higher risk sectors. IWM, cryptocurrency, bulls still are not proving anything. And that's what we need if we're going to have confidence in everything. NVDA. So just to cover it with SMH, these were the trades that I took today. So gap up open, we knew anything under 324.49 was just a lower high. We were watching for the potential of an inverse head and shoulders to try and shape up, and it would still be possible, but the size of the pullback means it's much less likely, and it's no longer the ideal setup that I'm looking at. But trades I took today, I was not at the computer for the vast majority of today. So I made a trade in the morning and I made a trade in the afternoon. And in hindsight, obviously, just looking for a top fish on the gap up open and having a bearish position and leaving the computer all day would have been the way to go. Easy to say in hindsight. Would have been nice because, again, I exited my hedge position, so my SPY long-term no touch was a bit exposed. And so that dropped today. I was able to offset it with these day trades, but again, just hindsight, little lesson for myself. Gap up opens after that kind of move with the rejection from the NASDAQ resistance. Enter bearish on the morning. Honestly, I probably wasn't planning on trading on the morning and ended up trading NVDA bullish twice and 2 for 2 bullish. You look at this chart and say, how in the world are you trading bullish and having over a day maker? And it's just because trading oversold bounces is one of my edges. So first one, 1017, aggressive bull scouting an NVDA 2-minute higher low versus low of the day. So what was going on at that point in time? We were seeing bears in complete control with a big drop down. 2-minute RSI was in the teens. 5-minute RSI at that point in time was in the teens. 15-minute RSI at that point in time was just about to hit the teens. It was in the low 20s. So it was a big enough bounce on the 2-minute time frame, and QQQ was beat up enough where I was looking for an entry here, a stop under here, and hoping that the bulls could confirm a 2-minute trend change. So, made an entry. I did trade BKKT as well, but made an entry, tried to play the bounce, didn't like it, and exited with pretty much break even. So ignore that uneventful trade. But NVDA entered 292.96. So that is on this pullback right about there. Stop under the low with a little bit of wiggle room. And then from there, 2-minute trend change did confirm, but there was a lack of follow through. In this instance, what helped me was I'm about to leave the computer and I like that nice little win. That's over 1%. We'll just call it 1%. A little 1% win, about to leave the computer, and a decent little win on the day without really putting in much effort. So I just locked it in because, again, we broke that higher high without much follow through. And then we set another 2-minute higher low and we failed again, and then we rolled over. That's just a 15-minute bear flag. So the trend change with the lack of follow through, I need to leave the computer, locked in 1%. So was pleased if that was just going to be my day. If I had stayed at the computer all day, knowing myself, I would have given back that win, trying a different bounce and probably failing. Maybe I could have positioned myself break even, but I'm not going to kid myself, and I probably would have tried another bounce and probably would have failed. So just keeping that in mind, it benefited me to be away from the computer, and then I came back and sat down just around 3 p.m., a little bit before it. And so at that point in time, I recognized the NASDAQ uptrend support. I said, okay, well, the NASDAQ is a straight drop down to the low of yesterday, towards that low. And if we are going to bounce off this uptrend support line, we're nice and extended. 1 hour waterfall drop. All right, let's do it. So I played NVDA anticipating a bounce on the NASDAQ. Nothing about the NVDA chart had me looking to play NVDA. It was all about the NASDAQ. I knew we were holding the low of yesterday still, and there was a potential play off that level. So that was in the back of my mind. But again, this was 80% the NASDAQ chart as to why I played NVDA, knowing if the NASDAQ bounces, NVDA is going to bounce as well. So at that point in time, I said in NVDA for a play of NASDAQ uptrend support line, stop under 280. That was at 250. I got a real good fill. So that was right here. And it got filled at 281.25, set my stop under 280, risking less than half of the trade I made on the morning and just trying for it again. And we then formed a little 2-minute equal or a 5-minute equilibrium, and it broke bull. And from there I exited. Whoops, that's me. Entry was just, I had it again right off that low. I missed the low of the day by 32 cents. That's a little bit of luck for sure. So in 281.25, out half at 285, and then gave the bulls a little bit more of a leash, and we did get a little bit more follow through, but not much, and then exited into the end of the day to protect against any potential profit taking. So 2 little trades, counter trend, but just again, I'm not going to be here, teaching you all things about trading in the market and saying these are trades to look for, because I'm playing counter trend, And if I'm teaching someone, you want to be teaching them, to be looking short on a bear controlled day. The only reason I'm looking to play these bounces is I love oversold bounces, and you can see why. I've definitely gotten good enough at them where I can have a day maker even on a big red day. So I don't want newer traders to be looking at this and saying, well, I'm just going to try and trade bounces. There have been people that have been in the chat room for 2-3 years that have developed bounce trading as one of their edges just from observing and following along and developing similar trading styles. But again, as a newer trader in the first couple of years, you don't want to be trying to play bounces like this on a day like this. So just want to give that little asterisk along with this trade review. On to the rest of the market, Tesla. So our 4-hour downtrend support line continues to be tested here. And the action after hours, this doesn't really matter much to me. And again, it's just the kind of thing where we would just tweak this line a tiny bit. And we're still within it. But this, again, the bulls have to show up tomorrow. We need a green day tomorrow to remain within this tightening pattern. And if we get it, then we know volatility is going to be coming next week because we're going to get real tight here and we'll be looking for that break. So keeping an eye on Tesla, but bulls must show up tomorrow. And the NASDAQ is similar with its 4-hour downtrending support line and a downtrending resistance line as well. Keeping an eye on those patterns until they break. We've got our 4-hour time frames on the futures charts. I've got 4-hour time frames in crypto that I'm keeping an eye on. Let's see if they're already up to make life easy. Look at that Bitcoin pattern. I drew it. Need to adjust a little bit because I drew it before that little candle. But this is a good one to be watching. Ethereum has one. Long story short, I got a bunch of 4-hour tightening ranges on watch here and waiting for them to resolve themselves. Healthcare, just a monster bull. Higher low every single day, 3, 6, 9, 10 days in a row, new all-time highs. So again, we're not seeing fear with everything dropping. We have some sectors that are going up while tech is going down. Obviously, healthcare is one of them. XLU utilities is a defensive sector. And look at us here up at our highs. So did we get that all-time high today? I think we did. Not by much. It's still a double top at this point, but we did get a new all-time high in utilities. So again, there is money going elsewhere in the market. There is rotation taking place. This is not money leaving the market when everything's dropping at once. And again, you can look to quad witching. You can look to the end of the year and a lot of shuffling going on. Things are definitely getting a little bit tricky as far as, again, all this shuffling that's going on. A lot of traders are expressing frustration, and it makes sense. So again, when we feel that way, pump the brakes, trade less, wait for clarity. 250 plus trading days in the year for stocks, 365 for crypto. We can afford to be patient to wait for the trade setups that favor our trading style. So XLU, XLV are up, XLF confirmed a daily trend change. So financial sector also green today. Financial sector is up 1.26%. That's fairly significant. Higher low, higher high. So daily trend change confirmed. Now we zoom out. We are watching for a weekly lower high here. So again, if things are going to get ugly in this market, then head and shoulders is on watch here. And if we fail 40.86 and then break our fear low of 37.54, we confirm the first weekly downtrend in a while as far as a clear lower high and lower low. And then further monthly consolidation would be underway at that point. That's something that I'm keeping a close eye on. If we see red tomorrow, it'll be a daily trend change with a lack of follow through, which will have me cautious and watching for the potential of a weekly lower high. If I want to hedge, if I've got XLF or XLF correlated names in a long-term portfolio, I am looking for a bearish position, a bearish swing position, looking for a lower high and top fishing that all-time high. In case we roll over, have to protect against that. Uptrending support line, looks like we got one on the daily to be watching here. But really, it's just those higher lows. That's a good uptrend line. So it's one of the lead bulls as far as one of the stronger names, at the highest price that we've seen in weeks, but we have to be cautious of that potential weekly lower high. IWM is still extremely weak, just a lower high being set on this bounce. Looking at the fear low of 211.08. And again, as long as we keep this downtrend, as long as the bears keep control, then we know it is a risk-off market environment. And that's partially shown by XLU being up at all-time highs. Defensive. Biotech sector, daily lower high set. So heading back down towards support. There's a potential bottom fish. Again, you look at the 4-hour time frame, potentially looking for a play off the 106s, but we certainly know the bulls would have to hold the 106s and break 114.48 if we're going to see any kind of momentum shift. So the names that were on our weaker end of the spectrum, they're staying weak. And we knew to be just looking for daily lower highs, and they're potentially already being set. The names that are stronger, some of them are still strong, like XLV, but we're real cautious the NASDAQ if we can't get over that resistance, and further weekly consolidation is coming. Tomorrow's a pretty important day. If we see another big red day, we're going to have a lot of these names breaking these support lines that we're keeping an eye on. And we'll be heading into the weekend, again, with some freshly instilled fear. So keeping a close eye on how we end this week. The dollar is testing the daily uptrend. If 95.849 breaks, the daily higher low is lost and weekly consolidation is underway. The metals are benefiting the most as far as bulls at this point. The metals are benefiting from the FOMC, and they kept that reaction going. So we saw markets with a big bull move and then gave it all back. Not all of it, but gave most of it back. Whereas the metals saw a big bounce and they saw continuation. So they still have proving to do, but we're breaking the lower high resistances. And we know that if we're going to believe this move out of these bulls, we will eventually have to confirm a daily trend change, keeping in mind there's a lot of space for a weekly lower high here as well, anything under 1877. Silver is the same deal. Daily is bouncing, notably, breaking resistance levels, but the daily trend change is needed. And again, a patient bull is saying, great, bounce without me, bounce significantly enough, I'll see you on the higher low, and I'll play off the low at that point. So a bull, a patient aggressive bull, if that makes any sense, a bull that is patient enough to wait for a signal, but then aggressive enough to act on the daily time frame rather than the weekly or something longer term, is waiting for a daily higher low to be looking for an entry due to the size of this bounce. So the big question for me, can the NASDAQ hold this 4-hour uptrending support line? Can Tesla hold its support? Can NVDA hold the base around 280? And if they do, there's lots of space for hourly lower highs to form tomorrow. SPY, anything under the high of today is just an hourly lower high. But again, when you see this kind of range, normally I'm scouting equilibriums. Big bull move, big bear move, equilibrium is the most likely scenario. Doesn't happen every time, of course not. Clues are volume. If we have another high volume day tomorrow, then equilibrium can potentially be ruled out. But on high volatility ranges, to not be in equilibrium, you need high volume. If you see volume dropping off, that's when those ranges tighten up. All right, do good things. I appreciate you watching. Still got to be protective out there, especially if you are holding a longer term portfolio. And we will see you next week. Have a good rest of your night. Story time, chapter 8. So we are looking now, Colorado, Black Canyon of the Gunnison National Park in Colorado. And it's pretty much like, I won't say it's like the Grand Canyon because it's way different, but it is, I think it's the deepest ravine, I don't know what the right word is, but the deepest thing in the country in terms of steep, how steep it is, and the slope and how fast it drops down to the bottom. And you can see the river in there cutting away, and that's just been millions and millions and millions of years of ice and glaciers and rivers cutting away at these rocks. And it's really cool that you can literally just see time and see all the different years and millions of years going down to the bottom. And it's a pretty cool national park. Not a ton of camping in terms of, you know, being out in the woods or things like that. They have designated areas, but a cool place to check out. And really cool sunrises and sunsets. There's all your nice flowers with the reds and purples and blues, and arid in the Colorado dry air, but still a lot of plant life thrives. But really nice views, long distance. The sunrise and the sunsets were really cool because the shadows across the rocks were awesome. And I would just do my thing in the BLM land or National Forest land. This is just another campsite off the side of the road. And if you're looking to travel, the national parks are the kind of places that cost more, but it's clearly they're a lot better funded in terms of infrastructure and also information. They have great information centers, and you can show up to a national park with no plan, and they'll fill you in with everything you need, maps and best places to hike and best places to camp and all that. If you're going to a national forest, they have information centers, but you can tell they're way underfunded. They don't care. I've gone to national forest information centers, and they almost don't want you to go to certain places. They're trying to steer you away. Maybe it means more work for them picking up trash, which I could understand, but it's way less helpful. It's night and day experiences. So if you're going to national parks, or national forests or BLM land, you need to do research on your own on the internet before getting out there. Otherwise, you are probably going to get lost and you're going to miss out on a lot of the best areas. But that's what I was talking about with the shadows for, looks like sunset starting there in the cavern. This dude, I was just sitting there at my campsite. This little chipmunk, it's pretty poor quality, but his mouth is completely stuffed, his cheeks are completely stuffed, and his belly is completely stuffed. He was literally dragging his belly, walking across the road in an army crawl like he was full of food, which he was. But he just stopped, and he stayed in this exact position, and he just stared at me for literally enough time for me to sit there and be like, what are you doing? And pull out my phone and take a picture for it. It must have been there for 5 minutes, still like that, with his legs sticking out, just completely stopped. He was probably saying like, man, I hope he doesn't come and get me because I can't move if he wants to get me. Anyways, there's some more of the canyon, and you can go down into the canyon, but it's a multiple day excursion, and it's certainly a lot of planning, and I did not do that. There's some more of the shadows and different angles that the rocks are being hit. Then I went to Silverton, Colorado, which is a little old mining town, very small, but they go all out for their fireworks, and it's probably the second best firework display I've ever seen. I went to Boston in 2000, and they went all out, so that's probably the best, but it's just regular old Silverton, Colorado. They've got mining tracks, or I should say railroad, nice scenic railroad through the mountains, through Silverton, but some mining history in the town, and mostly a vacation, not a vacation spot, but a place that people pass through, not a whole bunch of locals, but a really cool fireworks show, and nice to be able to just skip into town and see that. So from here, I'm going to hop on over to Ouray, and then I think I head down south towards Durango and Mesa Verde National Park, and that'll be chapter 9, I think. I've lost count of chapters, but we'll keep on going. See you soon.